one of the things that was really interesting, and I'm actually like pulling up some of my notes from it as well, because Social Media Week was so great. Obviously, we're talking about authenticity a lot, whether it was authenticity or AI, which is funny because can there be authenticity with AI?
Ooh.
There's a good question.
It is. It's a big question. My
It's a
friend
very big
Pete
question.
from Citrifuse, he's all about this.
He is. He is.
Welcome back to Generation Influence, a podcast focusing on the movers and shakers working behind the scenes in influencer marketing and e-commerce. Today's guest is really interesting. She's Kelsey Blazaitis, Senior Director of Social Marketing at CompTIA. I think I said that right. Now, if you're saying to yourself, I've never heard of CompTIA, and why is Bill so excited? Well, those two things are related. And so, Kelsey, tell us a bit about yourself and CompTIA.
Thank you so much, Bill. Yes, I'm Kelsey Blazaitis. I've spent my entire career in influencer marketing, which is a little atypical for the space, but I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had to help build the industry over at IZEA. And I spent about 7 years over there. So I was in sales and I kind of became the craft and DIY queen. We were organized by a geographic area when it came to our sales functions, but it worked out that Gorilla Glue, duct tape, Kohler, Fiskars, all of those were my clients. And I think it's because I was able to really kind of hone in on that. I like doing those things myself. I love gardening. I love doing craft and DIY. So it worked out that I was able to then sell to, the value props that they were trying to get through the influencers. So at IZEA, it was great. I was there for about 7 years and I was looking for a bit of a change though. And it worked out that someone had reached out to me, a recruiter, to go to this CompTIA thing. And I was like, gosh, what is that? You were saying, did I say that right? It's CompTIA, but we get that a lot. Where is it CompTIA? Is it CompTIA? Some people even call us CompTIA, which is a really interesting one, but it's happened. So
the French version.
It's the French version. Yes, exactly. So the interesting thing about CompTIA is I was hired on to establish their influencer function here. They really had a list of maybe about 10 or so influencers. They were working with a boutique agency that, quote unquote, knew influencer marketing. And I knew how we could do influencer marketing at scale. So it was a really cool opportunity for me to come over here and apply my influencer chops and what I've learned and established over at IZEA, and then translate that over here into something that was really new territory. So I needed a challenge though, I think. I'd been doing sales for the last 7 years, and I think people call it the golden handcuffs, right? Where you're like, okay, well, it's pretty good. So I think I'll stay. And I love IZEA dearly. I love all of the people there. I met my husband at IZEA. So I'm a big IZEA stan, but it's a matter of, I just needed something different. I needed something else, right? So I was a little intimidated by the space because this is cybersecurity, IT support, data and development. And I'm like, I don't know I know that I submit IT tickets and that's pretty much it. So I'm not sure how we even translate into it, but it was great. I had content and influencer experience coming in. So it made sense for me to then come in and apply what I had learned at IZEA, apply the strategies that I helped implement on behalf of my clients, even in the crafting space, because you really do need curiosity. You need creativity when you're responding to these different tickets. You need what we call durable skills. And I think some people call them soft skills, but we call them durable skills because you really do need that as a foundation for being able to communicate with other people, with someone that's having an issue, their laptop is breaking down. I think everyone's probably been in that realm where you're like, oh crap, my device isn't saving and now it's all frozen and I can't do anything with it. So you're in a really tricky situation, but the person that's helping you on the other end of the line, whether that's your IT support person or I don't know, maybe your son or daughter or something like that these days, it's like, how do I figure this out? And the people on the other end have to be cool, calm, collected. They have proper documentation. They have the ability to ease your worry and then also be able to say, listen, we've got this. It's not a big deal. So those durable skills are some of the things that we are hammering home right now with state, local, federal government, with, education from middle school all the way up to post-secondary school. That's what we're saying is a really important thing. Beyond the technical skill that you need to actually do the job, you really do need those durable skills as well to succeed.
It's really interesting. So there's a bunch of stuff I want to unpack in that question, or that answer. The first thing that's interesting, right, is to start meeting people who have spent their entire career in influencer marketing at this point. You know, it speaks to an industry that is beginning to grow up. And so just kind of note, I'm not sure we've had anybody else on the show who had that same sort of setup. And so it's kind of fascinating. The other thing that I think is really interesting there is this idea of an industry trade group deciding, you've been there 18 months, 2 years?
Actually 4.
4 years.
4 years.
Okay.
Yes.
4 years ago. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I hadn't realized.
I'm just a baby though.
Yeah. So, all right. So that's 11 years professionally, 7 at IZEA, 4 there. But 4 years ago, a trade group saying we need to be in influencer marketing. And because I think the perception even today continues to be, right, it's the province of brands that have this sort of social affinity to them, and maybe natural followings, but a trade group, and again, knowing the things that you're doing there, which we'll talk more about through the podcast, saying no, we it's important for us to be present in influencer marketing as well. I think is a really interesting evolution, and it goes to something I've been thinking about, which is as the market continues to expand, right? But people's time, we're reaching a saturation point on the amount of time people have to spend in social, right? Relative to other things that they might do, like eat and sleep and exercise or do work, right? That we're going to start fracturing people's ability to give more time. So the pie necessarily of available space isn't growing. Yet more people are coming in, like a CompTIA, and saying we need to be part of this. How does that kind of work? And I'm very bullish actually about what it means for the industry. And I also think there's a lot happening where we are seeing people with these very specific expertises contributing their voice. And so again, I feel like you guys are part of that. So I'm really hoping we can tear all that apart. And by the way, the other thing that is just worth shouting out, right? In some ways, all roads lead back to IZEA, like really an early pioneer in influencer marketing and making it the industry today. So, a quick shout out to that organization. And it's, great to see what I would call the IZEA diaspora out there, continuing to do great things in the industry and find professional fulfillment. So, okay. So all of that. All right. But this is one of the first times we've had, somebody from a trade association, let alone a nonprofit. We did speak to Pete Blackshaw recently from Centrifuge, which is also a nonprofit. We really didn't talk that much about influencer marketing. So here, it's our first chance to talk to somebody with a trade organization leaning into this industry. Can you just go a little bit deeper on, well, first of all, what are employers or brands or, again, governments, education, what are they getting from CompTIA? Just ground us a bit in what the organization is doing, so that we can then figure out the overlay of influencer marketing.
I can give you our elevator pitch here for CompTIA. And in fact, just recently, we, over the last year, as a marketing organization, have in a way or evolve our structure, and CompTIA is the most authoritative and respective place to help students, career changers, tech professionals, really anybody that is looking to start and succeed in a tech career. And we unlock potential and impact more than 1 million people every single year. And we do that by providing affordable learning resources in various formats for however you like to learn, whether it's one-to-one in a solo format, or if it's something where you need an instructor to help lead you and a cohort to back you up. And CompTIA resources, they're made available online. We have amazing content that is out there, owned content, where we source subject matter experts to be able to help you understand the differences between the new DoD frameworks, 8570 versus 8140. We kind of break down some of those really technical aspects of things and make it easy to understand, but also easy to follow as well, because we have a career pathway that starts from the infancy of, I think I want to change careers, but I really don't think tech is for me. We kind of dispel all of those myths all the way up into, I'm in cybersecurity and I want to now kind of get out of the technical side of things, and I want to start to manage the security architecture and framework for the organization at an enterprise level. That's where CompTIA Advanced Security Practitioner Plus, the exam, is for you. So really, our global community of IT and business leaders is dedicated to solving those real business problems and then future-proofing for success. And I think that that's the biggest thing for us, is that everything that we do, regardless of the side of the business that it's being driven by, is focused on that one thing, and it's to unlock people's potential in tech.
That's awesome. And so it does sound like a lot of it comes down to training and then community surrounding that training. Are most of the trainings that people go through, is it more of a situation where a company is saying to their IT workers, you need to go take this course, you need to pass this course, you need to have this sort of certification, go do this? Or is it more self-directed, where people are saying, I want to advance in my career, and therefore I'm going to take these courses to open up new job opportunities? And like, where's the pull come from, and where does the awareness of those opportunities, I guess, come from?
Totally. So I think it's, how we said that we were almost like B2B to C or B2E, all of those different things. Part of it is led by education. So part of it is that we have schools, even at the middle school level, that are adopting some of our curriculum. So that way it's really great for us to be able to say, hey, we think that digital fluency, and it's fluency, not just literacy. I think a lot of people talk about digital literacy, and it's not enough just to be literate in it. It's that you need to be fluent in it. So it's not just that I know how to use Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel. It's that I know how to perform a job function or to solve problems using that technology. So we think that this is CompTIA Sparks mission, which is our 501c3. We think that digital fluency is as important as reading, writing, and math, especially at the middle school level, because at that level, that's where students are more impressionable. They're starting to explore, what do I want to be when I grow up, kind of thing. And they start to be able to tinker with things and figure out, all right, when I was 13, I got my first laptop, and it was a Dell, and I was pumped. I got it in 8th grade after working a summer at the airport pet lodge, which was,
oh my gosh,
that was my first career, and I had to get a worker's permit to get that job. So I willingly signed up to shovel poop in order to get that Dell laptop. So let me tell you, it's still a prized possession. It does not work to this day, but I have it because I'm like, that is an achievement right there. It's basically a trophy. But think about that, when you are in middle school, you're starting to consider maybe what you want to do or what your interests are. And that's where we want to make sure that we join with district leadership and teachers, and making sure that, they have the right curriculum that's backed by 40 years of experience of training the tech workforce in order to be able to implement that in their schools. So it starts there, but we're just starting to really kick off that program. And in fact, there's a beta right now. So if anyone knows a middle school teacher that's interested in tech curriculum, there's a beta that you can sign up for. So that way we are testing out that curriculum over the next school year, and then we'll be able to implement it and open it more broadly for the rest of the nation. So your question is, where does it start? Some of it can start there. Some of it is led by the fact that there's demand. It's a beautiful supply and demand thing when someone says, okay, I'm hiring for an IT support specialist, and I know that CompTIA A+ maps directly to that job role, then I'm going to require it on the job application. So if someone is applying to it and they don't have CompTIA A+, odds are the AI is probably going to say, okay, we're going to pass over this one. So we're going to find a candidate that does have that certification on their resume. But it also could be from a tech mover or climber kind of situation where, I'm in IT support right now and I really am interested in data and security. So maybe that person says, I know that I got my CompTIA A plus and I want to explore some of these other things. So they pick up a book on data plus or for data analytics, or you pick up a book on security plus, and then you realize, well, before I can secure a network, I probably should figure out how it works. So it's not necessarily that linear where you would go from A plus to net plus to security plus, but network plus could be an opportunity as well, so that you can really understand frameworks and the intersectionality of how an infrastructure just works in general, of like, okay, so I'm using headphones right now. How are the headphones being connected to my computer to catch my audio and to have me be able to receive your audio? It's by Bluetooth. How does Bluetooth work? So it's being able to break things down in a very simple way. All of us use tech in some way, shape, or form every single day. And it's about being able to elicit that curiosity of someone that says, well, how does this really work? And so I do think that curiosity is one of the best durable skills that someone can have, but it's also the creativity of being able to problem solve. So the person that is exploring it on their own will likely find us because they're looking for IT support or they're looking for cybersecurity. Odds are they're going to find us because of our amazing content library, but also because we make sure that we show up for those audiences and nurture them through their entire career path. But it is definitely a supply and demand thing where if it's required on a job application, odds are that person, sometimes there's overspecking of roles. Let's be honest. You can't have 5 years of experience and have it be for an IT support role. It's the typical catch-22 where you're like, well, how am I supposed to get experience if I don't have experience and all of that? So that's where we step in as well to try and say, well, have you considered putting this on your resume that you were a tinkerer and you took your laptop apart and you were able to put it back together because you were you're curious and because you have the ability to dive into different trainings and things like that online to figure out how to do it. So it's things like that I think to me it's kind of like, oh, that's like second nature, that makes sense, that like that's how that would work. But I've been here for 4 years and I know that that's not necessarily the case. So part of our marketing mission right now is really to help explain that it really is surrounding us every single day. Every single person, the 40 million people that are considering a career change right now in the US, you can do tech, even if you don't think that you can do tech. And I think that people see these things like, oh, tech, I've got to have, a computer science degree, or I have to be technical. That's not actually true. You can self-train. You can jump into a live online training course with CompTIA and be able to have a cohort next to you with an instructor that's leading you through a 2-week boot camp, and you will get CompTIA certified in 10 days. So there's just different
10
ways
days?
that you can do it. 10 days. Yes. I know.
Wow.
And you know what? We have ads running right now. And someone was like, 10 days. Yeah, right. And I was like, I don't think that people realize too, some of the people that actually interact with some ads, I don't know if they realize that like the brands actually do see what they say. And sometimes it's kind of like, all right, we'll just let it be. But sometimes it's like, no, you can. And it's not like, I'm telling you to just come at it cold turkey and then take it in 10 days. That's not advisable. But if you're there alongside with the training solutions that we've implemented, you get access to the tools that we own. It's CompTIA official product that you're being able to study on with an instructor, with a cohort to kind of do study groups and things like that together. It's possible to get certified in 10 days.
So it's a great overview of the user experience and the value. I'm sort of curious, and I asked this question through the lens of, and for you, having worked with brands or from listeners who may be running brands, right? So CompTIA is in this enviable position as a leader. I would even use the word an authority. Mm-hmm. And so again, that's an enviable position. I'm sure there's some interplay with being a nonprofit, being a trade association where you've got multiple, brands paying in, leaders in the space paying in the membership fees. But are there any lessons for regular, I'm going to use the word regular for lack of a better word, or for-profit brand managers in how you build a brand and preserve that authority? And that sort of almost like pristine positioning as, you know, as a leader in the space and as the person people turn to and can trust in such a sensitive area?
Mhm. That's a great question. It's one that I think that we've come a long way in the last 4 years in our overarching social strategy and in our brand strategy as well. We want to be that authoritative figure, but we also want to appeal to Gen Z who doesn't view authority figures as authoritative. Like it's kind of like a really interesting thing. You know, we're not your cutie pie little CPG brand. This is an industry trade association. So imagine, you know, me showing up to social media week and telling people I work at CompTIA and having them be like, what is that? And I was trying to explain it as, okay, well, you know, the Association of National Advertisers, those really fun conferences that I'll probably see you at later this year. But the wonderful information that we get from those conferences, not just the fun parties, it's essentially that for the trade association, for the tech industry. So I try to liken it that way, and it makes it a little bit more palatable for people that maybe don't know it. But it is a delicate balance of being that authoritative figure while also being able to show up in a brand voice that the audience wants to receive. So when I started at CompTIA, I started to establish that influencer function on the B2C side of the business. And then it actually was when I was on maternity leave, a year and a half into my role, that I began to oversee social in its entirety for the B2C unit. So I was working on influencer before, collaborating with the social team. And then while on mat leave, I get this wonderful opportunity to come back to a brand new role that's much bigger than what I had before, which was, again, an awesome opportunity to basically come back and be like, all right, I'm a new mom and I've got COVID going on at the same time. And I now have this new amazing role that I want to kick ass at. And I'm having a really hard time trying to figure out how to wrap my hands around all of this with having no staff, mind you, to run it. So it's me running influencer, running social. And I did have a temp that was helping me out when I was on maternity leave. So she ended up coming onto my team full time, and thank God for her, because it is a massive job. I have really high standards for the way that we position ourselves on social media to ensure that someone's responded to. I think back in 2019, no one really was responding to engaging with the social post. And what I always say is that social, it's not enough just to be on social. You really need to be social on social. And that seems like it's table stakes when it comes to social, but it's something that wasn't happening. And so we made sure that it did happen. And what do you know? We start to grow these communities. We had 10,000 followers. Now we have almost 50,000 on Instagram. So we have like an amazing growth to kind of look at here, to be able to say, all right, not only are we just going to show up on social, be social, and make sure that we are not just pointing people to the website all the time. And granted, that is our goal. As God's honest truth, it is our goal to send people to the website and to have them experience our brand and to sign up net new leads and all of those things. But at the same time, I also realized that we're a human first, right? Every single one of us is human first. And so that is the approach that we took to social media, is that we're not a robot that is just delivering a link for someone to click on and then go and interact with another robot. We're human. And so let's start to speak to these people like humans, and let's switch it from talking at someone to educating them, entertaining them, giving them something to follow us for. And so what did we do? We started to provide study tips directly within our Instagram feed. We wanted to make sure that people weren't just coming to us just to kind of get a discount or say like, hey, I want to use that. I want to get that 10% discount. We wanted people to hang out with us, and they wanted to hear their stories and celebrate their successes right along with them. So I love the way that we're approaching social now, because we have been able to meld both the 40 years that we've built this industry on with meeting it with the people where they are, with the messages that we know that they'll react to and that they'll receive well. And it's become this really beautiful thing that I'm just so proud of. Part of the reason that we're able to do that is because of the technology. So I was able to advocate for the technology that we needed in order to be aware of those conversations that are happening when people don't even tag us. So we have social listening through Sprout Social. We do publishing and monitoring reports, all of the things. I'm just a giant I'm just a giant Sprout Social stan as well. I really believe in their product and in the advancements that they've made, especially with the user feedback that we've been able to provide to them. So for us, like, we're able to really bring this strategy to life of showing up with that experience, but also realizing that people don't want to be talked at. They want to hear about a story, and they want to know how that person got to where they are. And so that's really the whole part of why we're here now, is to showcase those stories and make sure that people see themselves in that as well. So we make sure that we're highlighting diverse voices. We're making sure that no matter what your walk of life or what your education level is, you can do tech. And we make that simple for people, because we realize that there's a really big opportunity to close that skills gap, and we want to be a part of it, and we want you to be a part of it too.
That's awesome. So I want to wrap a couple of things up there, which are interesting. And actually, let me go back for a second to the question or so before, something that I noted down, which is you joined 4 years ago, and yet CompTIA didn't have a CMO until 1 or 2 years ago. So I think it's kind of fascinating that the organization said, we need to be in influencer marketing and social even before we need to have an overall CMO, which again, I just think is a fascinating sign of the state of the industry, and again, very bullish for those of us who've tied our careers to influencer marketing. I think that's interesting. And feel free to correct me, but I think what I also heard though in that was 4 years ago when you got there, the vision of what that was all going to mean was something different than what it turned out to be, or where you've taken it. That maybe this was another place like traditional PR to trumpet our message, but what the learning is well, no, this is a bit more of a conversation, interactive, which I think obviously awesome and something I would totally agree with. I am curious. I still haven't quite grokked the vision of what an influencer is to CompTIA, or who CompTIA's influencers are. And when we first started talking, I had this maybe a vision of like it was going to exist only on LinkedIn, and it would just be tech posts in text from IT professionals, or maybe really boring tutorials on YouTube or something like that. My sense of it, the more we've talked, is I'm completely wrong, as is usually the case. So can you talk about that? What is an influencer in CompTIA's world, and how are you leveraging them to have those human conversations?
So I think I mentioned earlier that we really only had a roster of about 10 people that were influencers when I first came on. And one thing that was interesting at that time was that social and influencer were separate. And I think the reason for that is influencer meant a lot of things. Advocacy or ambassadors and those types of things, they think that they wanted an influencer program. Or I think that they actually wanted like an advocacy program, something where someone was, partnering with, some people to almost like refer a friend, if you will, or kind of establish that community separate from the social platforms. But what it ended up being is that ambassadors or influencers or advocates, it can mean a number of different things depending on who you are talking about. So what we turned it into was, and we did actually establish an ambassador program. It was great. And then we sunset it. Just didn't make a lot of financial sense, and that's okay too. So one of the things that we realized at the very beginning was that those 10 influencers, most of them were on YouTube. Most of them were already working in tech, and they had an affinity for social media. So they were just trying out this thing, right? Tech influencers were few and far between at that time, and it has only continued to evolve, especially as TikTok has taken off. One of the things that's on TikTok right now is, people are studying together. They're saying, hey, if you're an IT support specialist, this is what you need to know. Or here's top 10 IT certifications that you need this year. Or if you want to get to this level, this is what it is. So it's a lot of career advice. but also intermixed with, our focus is not necessarily just to put CompTIA out there and just get as many people certified as possible. It is, but it isn't. Our goal as a vendor neutral industry trade association is to close that skills gap. So who is an influencer to us? It's anyone that's talking about tech in this format to then close that gap, close that myth of, or shut down that myth of you need a degree to get into IT, or there's no way that I can make six figures working in tech unless I work in a sales organization or something of that nature. No, that is absolutely not the case. So however we can tap into those platforms where the conversations are already happening. When I looked at it at the very beginning of us trying to determine whether or not we wanted to be on TikTok, which was a security issue for us, where we're a cybersecurity company essentially. So how do we approach that? And IT is telling me absolutely not. My CEO is telling me go for it. So it's a really fun position to be in here, where we definitely researched it. We definitely banded together with privacy, IT, and all of those things just to make sure that it was sound. We had our SSO set up, all of those different things that you need in order to kind of have that table stakes thing of this is a secure thing. We're gonna test it out and we're gonna see what happens. When I first looked at TikTok, there were over 2 million mentions of CompTIA.
Wow.
And that's somewhat like, that's coming from people that are already talking about us. So when you said, okay, well, what's CompTIA? Or, not a lot of people have heard of CompTIA, maybe not in our advertising realm, but there's 2 million people on TikTok talking about it. And there's hundreds of thousands of messages that we get a year from people reaching out to us on social saying, hey, what's the best next step for me in my career? And we're there to answer it, which is really a really cool thing for us to be able to say. So an influencer for us, we just wrapped up a campaign for Decision Day, where we wanted to reach Gen Z on TikTok and say, hey, listen, everyone's coming out on May 1st saying, hey, this is where I'm going to college. You don't have to. That traditional path is not necessarily for everybody. And here are stories from people that are getting ready to go for a night out with their friends, talking about their career path and how they didn't go to college. And thank goodness, because this has opened up so many other doors for them. Or that non-traditional path, it's okay. It feels a little different because everyone else is going to college. But if you go to a technical school, or if you go to a community college and then really figure out what you're doing, or if you just start tinkering and you start interning places and start to really grow your skill set that way, that's okay too. So that's one example where we wanted the CompTIA brand name to be associated with those non-traditional career decisions, in that it's okay to make it your own decision. And CompTIA is right there with you to guide you in that path. Another campaign that we did was really focusing on our data pathway. So our data analytics pathway is brand new to CompTIA as of 2020 and 2020, 2021-ish. The data pathway, we realized that through industry research and market research that there is a lot of overlap in data and security specifically. So we need to, as the leaders in the space, we need to make sure that we have that baseline knowledge and foundation for people to learn about data analytics. So we did a data analytics campaign where someone was saying, hey, this is the day in life of someone that works in data analytics. And it shows their, these are the platforms that I use. You need to learn Python and R, and you need to know these different languages. And do I know what any of that means? Not necessarily, but I trust that the influencers who are already doing the job, but then are willing to be able to share their story online as well and have us be able to sponsor that, I trust in them to be able to deliver that message for us and for our brand.
Right. So CompTIA is on TikTok.
It
sounds like half of the, if not the entire IT professional world is there. So either we need to stop worrying about the Chinese stealing our data, or the game is already done and we're already through the wormhole, and it's basically all CompTIA's fault. So the game, one way or the other, it's already been answered. Congress can stand down. It's so great.
Isn't that so funny too, when you watch those briefings and you're like, oh, you have it so wrong.
Yes. Oh my
I
God.
just looked for hashtag CompTIA. It's now at 13.1 million views
Holy cow.
on
That's
TikTok.
just
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So you mentioned you were at Social Media Week. I have two
Yes.
questions for you there. One is, what did you learn? What was interesting? What are you excited about? That's one question. The second question, I'm gonna put you on the spot. What did you think of the Gen.video panel at Social Media Week?
Well, Bill, have I got a story for you? I did not see the Gen Video panel. And so, first and foremost, I'm so sorry, but it was not my fault. And I'm more than willing to throw them under the bus for this. So, everyone gets to Social Media Week. I think I got there on Monday. I was in calls and you couldn't check in until 4. We were at the TWA hotel. It was an incredible hotel at JFK Airport. I flew into LGA because I'm a United girly, and then I Ubered to JFK. So it was so funny because the Uber driver was so confused. He was like, "Why are we doing this?" And I was like, "Trust, I don't know where I'm going necessarily, but just follow the TWA. It's Terminal 5. Just get me there."
That's amazing.
So, so yeah, everyone was like, "Wow, like what time's your flight?" And I was like, "Oh no, I got to get on an Uber." And my Uber got stolen on the way. It was a whole thing. So
Your
that was on
Uber
the way
got
home.
stolen?
Yes, and like he started the trip. I was like, "I'm not paying for this." He came back. He dropped off the other passenger. Just one of those issues. That's okay.
Okay.
But no, I did not see your panel, unfortunately. But the reason was when we got there on Monday, there was no hot water. And I'm like, "Oh, you're here for a social media conference, guys. You should probably address this. I don't know, in some way,
Yes.
shape, or form. Get ahead of it. Don't just react to it. Make sure that you're anticipating the things that may happen." And, it's no one at the front desk's fault that the water wasn't working. I heard that there was 2 days prior, they lost power as well. And so like there was just a lot going on. So I get into my room after 4:00, of course. The room is like 80 degrees. So
Oh my
I'm like,
goodness.
beautiful view. Love seeing the planes. My dad is a pilot for United. He just retired in October. So I love airplanes. And so being at an airport just is cozy for me. But it was 80 degrees. And so I was like, okay, you know what? We'll just take a shower and whatever. There's no hot water. So I call down to the front desk and I'm like, "Hey, there's no hot water." And they're like, "Yep, we're aware of it. It should be back on in a couple minutes." I was like, "Great, no big deal." So let it run a couple minutes. And I'm like, "Gosh, I have dinner plans and like it's still not happening." So I'm like, dry shampoo, kind of like get this stuff ready to go. And turns out there was no hot water for over 18 hours. My first 18 hours,
God.
everyone's first 18 hours at Social Media Week. So, you call. I woke up randomly at like 3 a.m. and I was like, I'm just going to call. I'm just going to see what's going on. They're like, 2 minutes. And I was like, that's a lie. There's no way. And it didn't end up coming back on until, gosh, like noon the next day. And I think your panel was around like 10 a.m. or so.
Yep.
Right around the start. And I did hear a sneaky rumor that there was hot water in the basement where the fitness studio is. So I couldn't go because I was in the fitness studio taking a shower. Yeah, showering in the basement. Yep, exactly.
I love it. Well, trust me, it was an amazing panel, and only because I wasn't on it. And I was fortunate in that the hotel was sold out and had to stay somewhere else. So, like one of those disguised blessings. That's right. An amazing story.
And I'm also a Marriott girly. So I'm just out here I'm like, there's a Marriott a mile away. Like I need to know if this is going to get fixed soon, because then I will remove myself from the situation.
Yes.
That's okay. They were great. They were gracious. And just one of those things. It's a fun memory for all of us that went to Social Media Week.
Now, did you get any good nuggets once you finally were cleaned up and able to show up?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that was really interesting, and I'm actually like pulling up some of my notes from it as well, because Social Media Week was so great. Obviously, we're talking about authenticity a lot, whether it was authenticity or AI, which is funny because can there be authenticity with AI?
Ooh,
there's a good question.
It is. It's a big question. My
It's a
friend
very big
Pete
question.
from Citrifuse, he's all about this.
He is. He is. I know. It just came out today. I haven't had a chance yet to listen, but one of the things that we talked about was, how AI can be used in creator workflows and brainstorming, and it kind of helps to ideate a little bit more too. For us, it's something that we're exploring within our own chat tool in order to figure out and test different ad copy and figure out maybe what's going to perform best or what CTAs are working well or not. But I think that it could be really powerful with, we have physical products at CompTIA. We have physical textbooks, but a lot of people just get the ebook or they take our online training. And so it's difficult to be able to say like, hey, like show us the training. So it could be helpful for us to apply AI in that, hey, we want to see you using the tool, and it'll help us with like briefs with being able to give those action items to the creators and kind of just put it in different ways and maybe show them different examples through generative AI of what it could look like. So I think that that's one of the ways that we could potentially use it. Other takeaways from it is just, gosh, quality content, making sure that you leverage social content everywhere, not just on social, and use those creators and influencers as partners, not hired help. And I think that that's the biggest takeaway from this, because when I first started at CompTIA, it really was this transactional relationship initially. But our roster has grown because we've been able to really establish those relationships with people and be there for them every step of their careers. And they know that they can call Kelsey and say, hey, I'm having an issue with this, or hey, can you introduce me to this? Or, would love to be a subject matter expert for you on your next certification. I want to be part of something bigger. I want to help out with beta exams, or I want to help out with actually crafting the exams through a job task analysis. They don't actually say that, but that's what I want them to say to me, is that like, come to me, be an adjunct or faculty or whatever that may be to help continue to spread our mission. It's a collaboration, and it is not just something that is that transactional piece. So yes, there are pieces of the transaction where that gets posted on social, and we're able to then track that through UTMs and making sure that then we are tracking that back through to revenue at the end of the day. But it's really about that relationship, and that we want to close that skills gap, and we want to partner with quality creators who are spreading their own story, and we want to amplify that story through our messaging as well.
That's awesome. Actually, one of the things I just synthesized through the conversation was I hadn't appreciated that you guys were already pushing into, grade schools, elementary schools, and then with the advent of AI, right, which of course is like the thing that's got the whole world scared, and they're the optimists and the pessimists. Mm-hmm. Because I was trained as an economist, I tend to be an optimist on these things, and the statistic that always sticks in my mind is, in the early days of America, 98% of people were farmers. 100 years later, 2% of people were farmers. So literally the technology came along that displaced the entire workforce. Now, if you want to think about it that way, every job was displaced and became something else because of the technology that came to farming. Now that happened over a 100-year period. And so we can say, well, what if AI happens over a 5-year period? And so I don't think that's a realistic time frame, and I think things move fast and we, adapt much quicker anyway. So, but even if it replaced 100% of jobs, there's still reason for hope, because what humans do is we move to the next thing. And so the critical thing, it seems to me, in AI is just appreciating that today's elementary school kids are going to grow up with this tool. They're going to learn how to use this tool. And then they're going to go off, and it's going to become integrated into their life, and they're going to do other things, whatever we want to say professionally. They're going to spend their time doing other things than the things that we would think about that are going to be replaced with AI. You guys are perfectly positioned to help lead that transition, and to help do that from a position not of fear, but from a position of expertise and understanding. And so that's very exciting. And it reminds me, and by the way, feel free to comment on that, but it also reminds me of something else we talked about in our pre-call, which is you were mentioning that there is this actually tremendous skills gap that continues to exist. We think of ourselves as, as such a tech proficient world and everything's turning into tech. But the reality is that there's a huge skills gap, and I don't know if it's hundreds of thousands or millions of open jobs potentially in the tech space. So before the AI takes all our jobs, there's a lot of jobs that actually got to get filled. Can you talk to me about that? Are you guys optimistic, or that skills gap will get filled and can get filled, or is it just a never-ending challenge that you'll be fighting that same battle 20 years from now and don't know how we ever get there, just know it's got to be a priority?
Sure. We're incredibly optimistic because we have people that are dedicated. Their entire job is to go out and speak to state, local, federal workforce boards and say, this is innately what you need to be focusing on. We have been positioned at the White House to be able to partner with other organizations in a collaborative effort to establish that at a federal level, saying, hey, this is what the infrastructure needs to work toward. A while ago, we were there to commit to skilling up X number of workers by 2024. And so we're making those commitments and setting those goals for ourselves so that they can be achievable. Because how do you set goals? They have to be smart, they have to be measurable, they have to be actionable. So how do we do that? It's through making sure that CompTIA is making investments in those people to instill it at the ground level, from a workforce board kind of government perspective. But then also, we are marketing to those career changers. There are about 40 million people who are considering a career change in the US. A significant amount of them believe that tech is not for them because they're not able to do the tasks at hand or what they imagine working in tech is, or being technical. But there are things that are non-technical IT roles, like an IT project manager. We just revamped that entire certification so that it could map toward that specific role of being an IT project manager, to ensure that people that are working on an enterprise level can ensure that they're following the project and making sure that everything is documented to then, again, future-proof what is happening and how we can continue to evolve on that. So I think that CompTIA is incredibly optimistic about that skills gap closing. We make sure that every single month, whenever the jobs report comes out from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So you'll love this, Bill, because of the economics of it all. But every single month that comes out, we make sure that we are then taking it a step further at the tech level. So we bring out the tech jobs report. So we take what the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics puts out, and then we analyze it to understand who are the top companies that are hiring for what roles, what are those top roles, and where are they located. We have content that then is established off of that to say, hey, if you're looking for a tech job, here are the top 10 places to live in the United States in order to achieve that. And here's the thing, it's not LA and New York, it's all of these different places. Raleigh is one of them. Obviously, Austin is one of them. There are a number of them that are out there that you wouldn't necessarily think because it's not in this big metropolitan area. We also just came out with something called cyberstates.org. We came out with it. This is something that we've been doing for a very long time, and I think that not a lot of people know about it, but cyberstates.org is an interactive tool for you to be able to identify what those job roles are, not only by the national level or the state level, but at like the metropolitan level as well. So you can say, all right, well, I want to look at Chicago, but then I also want to zero in on Downers Grove and figure out exactly what those job opportunities are. So we make sure that we're equipping the individuals, the companies, and the government in order to make sure that it is ever present and that we are omnipresent across the board, saying that CompTIA is here to help educate you, to help make sure that you're making the right decisions and that you're skilling up the workforce in the right way. So are we optimistic about the skills gap closing? Absolutely, because we are making significant investments in making sure that it is ingrained into the very fiber of the United States and the globe.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we certainly wish you the best of luck in that mission and hope that the U.S. can maintain its technological edge. And it's obviously through groups and initiatives like CompTIA that we're going to do that. So this has been tremendous. Kelsey, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I learned a ton. I know that the listeners did as well. They are all leaders in my heart. So that was correct. Yeah, thank you so much for being here. And for everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next time on Generation Influence.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. New episodes of Generation Influence drop every Wednesday, so be sure to check us out and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. You can find information on next week's guest in the description below. Hope to see you then and there.